It's 6 o'clock. I call this regular school board meeting to order. It's July 15th, 2019, 6 p.m. or 6:01. Dr. Salazar, Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Miss, will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. Roll call, Mr. Trevino.
Yes, sir. Mr. Garza, Mr. Leonel Garza.
Present.
Ms. Sandra Garcia.
Present.
I am here. Mr. Ruben Trevino. Mr. Martin Castillo.
Present.
And Mr. Ray Farias is not here yet. Mr. Jesus Amaya.
Present.
Ms. Leticia Quintero is also not here at this time. Dr. Gonzalo Salazar.
Present.
Ms. Elizabeth Neely.
Present.
Thank you. Item 5, district reports. Dr. Salazar.
Mr. Garza, members of the board, we begin with our financial reports, listing A through E, our regular monthly reports. This time we would entertain any questions you might have about these reports. Mr. Garza, members of the board, if there are no questions, we move on to item 2, or report number 2, summary of proposed budget and fiscal year for fiscal year 2020. And for this, I'm going to turn things over to Mr. Young. Mr. Young.
Thank you, Dr. Salazar. Members of the board, this is our current summary draft for all governmental funds for fiscal year 2020. I know we had an extensive discussion about some budget issues in our last get-together, and since then we've refined it now. We have included almost all the requests in either the original or somewhat modified form from the campuses and departments, and we've made some adjustments to the revenue figures based on what we now know about House Bill 3. So you might notice that the revenue figures have gone up somewhat. We went back and we actually also received a summary survey that was done throughout the region on salary adjustments based on House Bill 3, and we made some tweaks to that as well. We are still well in compliance with what House Bill 3 requires to be done, and we've included some charts in here to kind of give you that idea. There is a pay raise included for the teachers. The professional hiring schedule was also adjusted, and of course, I know that I don't need to point out, but we only have a hiring schedule. We don't have a salary schedule. So the hiring schedule was adjusted upwards by 1,800. The 0 to 5-year teachers were adjusted by 2,000. So that keeps us in the situation where if we do hire a new teacher at the beginning of the year, they come in from somewhere else. They're not above what our current teachers are making. That's why we differentiate between the hiring schedule and the 0 experience level there. So we've maintained that. And then beginning, of course, in consideration of House Bill 3, we're beginning to adjust teachers by a graduated increase, beginning with the 6 years or more, 6 to 10 years, 11 to 15 years, 16 to 20 years, and 20 plus years of experience. And there's a chart in there that gives you the breakdown as to the actual increases based on those. And we felt like that this was the best approach to take, considering where we were last year, and we made a substantial adjustment. I think if you recall, we gave a minimum $4,000 increase to all our teachers, and so we did that to try to stay competitive, not to be at the top of the pay scale for the Valley, but to stay competitive. And so this adjustment we're proposing this evening would keep us, what we believe would keep us competitive. It's not going to put us at the top of the pay scale for the Valley area, but it will keep us in the running, we believe. To do much less than that, we feel like we would find ourselves back in the same position next year, having to make a major adjustment for that category. So I can give you more detail or less detail, however you feel, as we can move along, or I can stop now if you want to have any questions or concerns about that.
We'll pause here to see if anyone has questions.
So, okay, thank you, Dr. Solomon. So if we move through there, the next page after my cover sheet is on page 45. That's a breakdown of the compliance test for House Bill 3. And you can see at the top we're looking today, we believe the estimated increase in state funding over the old law prior to House Bill 3 is approximately $7.3 million. So the 30% of that increase, which is mandatory that we spend on raises for employees other than administrators, is 2.1. And then that breaks down, 75% of that 30% is the 1.6, and 25% of the 30% is the 548,000. So if you go down to about the middle of the page there, you see that we're actually, even though the requirement is 1.6, we're actually spending closer to 2.5 on that category that the legislature pulled out, the teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses. The next group, the group 2 increase, is everyone other than teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses, and administrators, because that left the language in House Bill 3 specifically excluded administrators. You see we have 676 people in that group. The cost for that raise, which is a 3% from the midpoint increase on that, is approximately $700,000. And then if you drop down to the non-required group, the administrative group, which is about 88 employees, the cost is just over $200,000 there. And that again is all based at 3% from the midpoint for those groups. And there's a chart further on in here that gives you a breakdown for each of those categories as to what the what the total annual increase would look like in each of those situations. The next page, 46, gives you a breakdown of what those groups were on the professional hiring schedule. The teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses, you can see the number we have with 0 to 6 years is 77. There are 664 over 6 years, 0 to 5 years, there's 110. 6 to 10 years, there are 144. We have our largest category of teachers, librarians, counselors, and nurses falls in the 11 to 15 years, and there's 187 in that group. 16 to 20 years, 125 in that group, and over 20 years experience, we have 168. So as you might imagine from previous reports when we've talked about how our retention level is much better than many districts in Texas. So you see, this is just an example of how that works out. We do have a considerable number of experienced, I was going to say mature, but the experienced teachers in our district, and obviously that contributes a great deal to our success. Being consistent over the years and using good techniques is something that they hone as they gain experience. The next page, 47, is the breakdown of the annual increase for that professional hiring schedule. Page 48 goes into what is the annual adjustment for clerical, paraprofessional, and manual trades, with a 3% from the midpoint adjustment there. There's a lot of numbers on that page, so I'll be happy to explain it if anybody has any questions on it. You see pay grades, there's some that have dashes, just because we separated the pay grades based on the number of days they work on that schedule. So, you know, you might notice like in the manual trades area, there's a pay grade 1, but there's a 1-1, 1-2, and so on, and that's because of the number of days.
Mr. Amat?
Right. They have to be, their raise, administrators' raises have to come from the 70% of that, or I should say, group. Yeah, it has to be any money that's left over. You could use that for administrative, but it also has to include any new programs that are mandated by the state as well. And as we saw with House Bill 3, and we talked about it, you know, there are several programs that we're not yet fully able to implement. So. After that, on page 50, we begin to break down the budget, and I would like to take a second and pause and give props to Mr. Basaldua and Ms. Mendez. They have put us in a great position, and I actually sprung a surprise on them last week when I said, you know, I have something I really need to do Thursday. Can you get it to me on Wednesday? And they actually did. Turned it around, and we're ready to go. This budget is in a much better, more refined state than we've seen in previous years. And I would just like to pause and thank them publicly for the work that they've done on it. So page 50, we begin the all governmental funds breakdown. So this includes everything. All governmental funds are made up, of course, of the general fund, Child Nutrition Fund, Transportation Fund, and Debt Service. So you'll see this report as we go through it. We get to get more detail from each fund as we move through these pages. So this is everything in one sheet, and it's broken down by object code. So you can see personnel costs, contract services, and et cetera. On the following page, you'll see a summary, page 51, of the Child Nutrition Fund. Our rep from SFE is in the audience as well, and I would actually commend him on working very closely with the finance office this year to get figures that we believe are probably some of the most accurate that we've had for CNS in some time. So we feel very comfortable about this. There's very little change over what the current year is. It's made some adjustments to it, but for the most part, we feel very comfortable with it. Following page is transportation. The transportation fund, you'll notice that, I'm on page 52. You'll notice that we do have a wild card in here in that the legislature changed the way transportation funding will be done for the foreseeable future. We used to be paid based on what the state referred to as linear density models, and it's kind of a convoluted, complicated formula, as you might imagine. Now the state is going to pay us, reimburse us based on mileage, strict mileage. However, exactly how that mileage is going to work out is not real clear at the moment. However, we've been assured that if we just use an estimate of $1 a mile, that will be within the ballpark there. So that's what that is based on. And I'm referring to the line there where it says miscellaneous state revenue. That's our transportation reimbursement that comes out of our general funding sources at the state, $1.6 million. And that's an estimate based strictly on $1 a mile. Otherwise, the costs don't change significantly from our current year budget, other than you see there is a difference in personnel costs. Well, obviously, doing the raises would cause the personnel costs to increase there. There's no additional FTEs requested in transportation, so it's strictly coming from the proposed raises there. I would also point out that we do have $620,000 in capital expenditures here listed, and that is for bus replacements. And I believe there's 2 district vehicles that need to be replaced that are also in that list. And as you get towards the bottom of the page, you see under other sources that we have transfer in a $2.7 million. That is the amount that the general fund supplements to transportation for the purposes of operating our transportation department. I would like to say that the state will, make up the difference and cover that, but they don't. And so this is not out of line. As a matter of fact, that 2.7 is what we've been using to supplement them for at least 5 or 6 years. And so far we've been able to make that work. We've accumulated a small fund balance there, so we're, rather than increasing our appropriation to meet the request for the department, we're using what they have in fund balance. And that it's kind of 6 one, a half a dozen the other, because we are going to need to do some bus replacements to continue with that. So either that comes from general fund balance, comes from their fund balance. If we take their fund balance and put it back in the general fund, we'd still end up taking it out to use for bus replacements later. So that's where we're at there. And you'll notice on general fund, you'll see a matching transfer out on that 2.7. The following page is our debt service summary. And you can see there a substantial change in revenue sources. With House Bill 3, the tax swap, so-called tax swap that we were operating under is no longer valid. It's reversed. So we're looking at a difference there of almost $2 million in local funding. But the positive side of that is that we do qualify. By doing that, we qualify to receive the total entitlement available to us from the state side. So you see a large increase in state funding there as well, from 246 to just over $1 million. And that's the required state matching amount that they agreed to when we received the IFA approval for those bonds we issued. You'll see a deficiency of about $5,000 there. That money is just set aside to pay for reporting fees. When you issue bonds, there's an annual reporting requirement that we have to do, what they call ongoing disclosure, and so we have to have funds set aside for that purpose as well. On the following page is the general fund summary. So I'm on page 54 now. and you'll see that this is broken down for revenues and then expenditures by object code. The next page is the same information, but it's broken down by function code rather than object code. Now, ordinarily, when it comes time to propose the budget next month, you'll have additional pages in here that break it down by object and function, or by function code and object code. So you get a better idea there, but it would have made the package quite a bit larger and would have taken us a lot more time to go through. But we'll be happy to, the staff is here this evening, so we'll be happy to answer any questions if you have particular questions about anything there. We also included some pages beginning on page 57 with the allocations. So if there's any concern about what a department is being allocated for their, or a campus for that matter, we can easily find that for you there in those pages. Some backup. You notice on that section, there's some in red. It's just some notes that we've made for ourselves. These are kind of these are not part of the actual budget package that we'll ask you to approve. These are just our backup notes that we use as internal references. So we can keep track of it. Like I said, there are a lot of numbers on this page, and it's easy to lose track of something if you don't make yourself notes. There's some notes that I'm talking about on page 61 that refer to increases in the different areas of the budget. I'll be happy to address those if there's any questions about those. I would say there's an increase of the trustees section that's not based because of anything that you all have asked for. It's because that's where the legal costs fall, because legal works for the trustees. So you see, because of that, we included a little increase there. And then also the election cost. Recall that we had a significant increase to the cost of elections. We've been assured that's not going to happen again, but we also know that it's not likely to be low like it was in previous years. So we're kind of in between there. So we had to bump that up by a pretty good chunk just to get there.
Sure, yeah. Pages 62 to 67 are analysis of by fund and program code. A lot of the same information. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's just a breakdown so that you could see how that money was allocated for different things, like whether it's appropriate to describe it by campus. Most of it, and we try to make a note there, if it's personnel costs involved, then you can see that makes a difference as well. Because personnel cost is the driving force behind our budget. It's most of the cost right there. So we try to make notes on that as well too. And those are the mandated programs. GT, I think we discussed it. GT is not funded anymore, but we do have some carryover funds from the current year that will flow into that. We need to make sure that those are spent, even though the GT program doesn't exist in the same form. The money was originally provided to us under those conditions. We want to stay true to that and make sure that we keep that, even though there isn't a funding source, we need to keep that coded as a GT program so that if ever in the future any of those costs are questioned, we can come back and demonstrate how they were spent. Same thing with high school allotment. And then the other programs are broken down as well, the ones that remain. Special ed, CTE, bilingual, it's the breakdown there.
Thank you, Mr. Young. At this point, does anyone have any questions, comments, or suggestions? We still have time to refine these numbers as we move forward. And by we still have time, I mean between now and August 12th, when we have to set a tax rate and propose a tax rate and then move towards our public hearing on August 26th.
Mr. Trevino.
Yes, Mr. Young. Just a question. For contract services on page...
I don't believe that there's anything in particular that led to that decrease, other than we typically will, what you look at on the left side is the current amended budget, and what you're looking at on that middle column is the proposed. So it would be, I can go back and check and see where we started the year.
That's probably it. That's
Yeah,
we'll probably see some amendments later on in the year and stuff.
Right. But 500,000 is pretty relatively small compared to the overall 7.2 million. So I'm guessing that would explain it. Plus, we typically bring additional contract services providers to the board as the year goes on, and so there are probably some expenditures out there that we're planning, but we don't really know how it's going to be spent yet. It's that we're going to bring some people in, but we don't have a definite number, so we haven't plugged it in there. It's probably 500,000 that exists elsewhere in the budget that's going to be transferred in. But let me defer to my staff. Is that here?
Ultimately, the very first column is the amended budget, so it's not the original budget that's brought forward. And it also entails any changes that, again, we send out the allocation worksheets to the departments and campuses, and they may have also budgeted a little differently for the upcoming year.
Got it. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we move on now to Item 4, we have our District Title I Family Engagement Policy Action Plan. And Item 5, we have our student handbooks. And at this time, we just want to check before we move on to the next item if anyone has any questions. I know those handbooks were pretty, so we sent them out in a separate pin drive. If anyone has any questions at this time, we would entertain them.
Questions from anybody on the board? I think we're good. Okay, let's go to Roman numeral 6, item 6, public audience. We have no one signed up, so we go to item 7, consent agenda. On consent agenda, the product that we have used, there's 26 items. At this time, I'm going to ask anybody that wants to pull an item for discussion or for whatever they want to have. If not, I will entertain a motion for items 1 through 26 for consent agenda. Mr. Amaya?
Mr. Garza, I move that we accept, approve consent agenda as posted and as written, all 26 items.
We have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Castillo. We have a motion and a second to approve items 1 through 26 on consent agenda as posted. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand, please. The motion is unanimous. 5-0. Okay. Action items. Number 1, discuss and take action to approve out-of-state student travel for 2019-2020 school year. A, LFHS Distributive Ed Club Education Clubs of America, DECA, going to Nashville, Tennessee, April 29 to May 20, 2020. Say again? My bad. April 29 to May 2nd, 2020. B, LFHS, Business Paraprofessionals of American, PBA, Washington, D.C., May 5th through the 11th, 2020. Is there a motion? Ms. Garcia?
Yes, Mr. Garza, I move that we approve the out-of-state travel for the 2019-2020 school year for DECA and BPA.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Mr. Trevino. We have a motion and a second to approve out-of-state travel. Discussion. Having no discussion, we have a motion and a second to approve out-of-state travel for 2019-2020. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand, please. Again, 5-0, unanimous. Item 2. Discuss and take action to approve the superintendent's personnel recommendations for the following positions for the 2019-2020 school year. A, teachers. B, counselor. C, diagnostician. D, state compensatory specialist. E, staff development director. Is there a motion? Mr. Trevino.
Yes, Mr. Garza, I move that the board approve the superintendent's personnel recommendations for the following positions for the 2019-2020 school year. A, teachers. B, counselor. C, diagnostician. D, state compensatory specialist. And E, staff development director.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Castillo. We have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the superintendent's personnel. Discussion. Having no discussion, we have a motion and a second to approve the superintendent's personnel. All those in favor indicate by raising your hand, please. 5-0, the motion is unanimous. Before we go to item 3, will those people that are here please stand and be recognized? Welcome aboard. We'll be down there to shake your hands in just a second, okay? Before we go to item 3, we're having a grievance level 3. We want to take a little break right now, and then we'll come back to do the grievance, and so we could go down and visit, congratulate you, then we'll come right back to go to item 3. We're taking a break right now. It's 7:22. We're back in open session. We're in item 10, number 1. Discuss and take action concerning level 3 grievance of Cynthia Botwell. Do I have a motion regarding the grievance of Ms. Botwell? Having no motion, this grievance and this meeting has concluded.